You know that feeling when something devastating happens, maybe a comment that cuts deep or a rejection that stings, and your first instinct isn't to cry or scream, but to smile? You tighten your chest, adjust your expression, and say, "I'm fine," with such conviction that even you almost believe it. Your friends call you the rock. Your coworkers admire your professionalism. But inside, you're carrying a library of unsaid words and unfelt emotions that are slowly turning into a bone-deep tiredness that no amount of sleep can fix. If this sounds like you, I want you to listen closely. You aren't cold, you aren't a robot, and you certainly aren't broken. You are a survival masterpiece. Your brain is playing high-stakes chess while everyone else is playing checkers. And today, we're going to peel back the layers on why you hide your true feelings. We're diving into the actual psychology of the silent ones, from the latchkey kid legacy to the parentification trap, to uncover why your nervous system decided that being invisible was the only way to be safe. Trust me, the reasons are way more interesting than you just being private. First, we have to talk about where this emotional invisibility begins. For many of us, it started in what psychologists call a high contingency environment. Imagine a child growing up in the 70s or 80s, the first massive generation of latchkey kids. You came home to an empty house, made your own snacks, and solved your own problems because there was no one else there to do it for you. In that environment, you learned a very specific, very hard lesson. Actions have real consequences, and there is no buffer time for feelings. If you cried, the homework still didn't get done. If you complained, you were still alone in that house. Your brain learned to predict outcomes in real time, and it realized that expressing a need often yielded a 0% return on investment. This creates a psychological blueprint where you value competence over vulnerability. You don't hide your feelings because you're shy. You hide them because your internal operating system views unregulated emotion as a threat to your stability. You saw the adults in your life struggling with their own big feelings. Maybe watching divorce rates skyrocket, or seeing your parents get destroyed by corporate restructuring. You saw that the world was unpredictable, and you decided that if you couldn't control the chaos outside, you would at least control the display on the inside. But for some, the roots go even deeper into something called parentification. This is what happens when you skip about 15 chapters of childhood and become the small adult in the room. Maybe you were the one mediating your parents' arguments, or you were making dinner for your siblings at 9 years old while your mom worked a double shift. When you are a child holding up something so much bigger than you, your own feelings become an inconvenience. You couldn't afford to have a bad day because if you fell apart, the whole house fell apart. You didn't just learn a lesson. You built a survival adaptation where your worth got tangled with your usefulness. In this operating system, being good means being low maintenance. You hide your feelings because you're terrified that if you show a single crack, people will realize you're not the reliable one they think you are. Asking for help or showing pain feels like admitting defeat, like failing at the one job you were assigned before you even learned to read chapter books, keeping everyone else okay. This leads to what we call social masking. When you hide your true feelings, you aren't just being quiet, you're performing. You are managing everyone else's emotions while simultaneously running a sophisticated PR campaign for yourself. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny to keep the atmosphere light. You avoid topics that cause drama. You act as the emotional conductor of the room, diffusing conflict before it even starts, because you can sense a shift in the emotional temperature before anyone else even notices. This is what we call cognitive load. While other people are just existing in a conversation, you are playing mental chess. You're analyzing facial expressions, measuring the silence, and rehearsing your next line to ensure it's perfectly neutral. It's why you leave a simple coffee date feeling like you've run a marathon. Your part of the brain that handles self-control is working overtime to ensure the mask doesn't slip, because you're terrified that the weird or broken parts of you will be seen. And let's be honest about the shame that lives behind the mask. When you endure a lot in childhood, whether it was chaos, neglect, or just never having a safe place to go, your brain tries to make sense of the pain. Since children believe the world revolves around them, They conclude that if bad things are happening, they must be bad themselves. This isn't guilt, which says, I did something bad. It's shame, which says, I am bad. If you believe you are fundamentally a mistake, hiding your feelings becomes an act of self-preservation. You hide your joy because you don't want to jinx it. You hide your pain because you don't think you deserve the comfort. And you hide your needs because you don't want to be a burden. You develop an allergy to being perceived as a victim. You say, it wasn't that bad, or others have it worse, effectively gaslighting your own nervous system to avoid the vulnerability of being seen. This is often paired with hyper-vigilance, a threat detection system that never turns off. You have memorized the language of pain so fluently that you can spot it in others from a mile away. You are the person who notices a slight shift in a friend's tone or a forced smile, and you're already planning how to check in on them. But when the roles are reversed, you go ghost. You stay quiet. You choose isolation over connection, because your brain has calculated that the exit is the only thing you can control. You've learned that connection often comes with a price tag: abandonment, judgment, or the exhaustion of being the glue for people who never show up for you. So you build boundaries that look like walls. You stop initiating. You stop trying. You wait to see if they'll notice the silence, and when they don't, it just confirms the data your brain has been collecting since childhood. You are the only one you can truly rely on. But here is the shadow side of being the silent workhorse. It slowly empties you out. You might be surrounded by people, family, friends, coworkers, and still feel completely alone. Not lonely in the sense that you want more people around, but alone in the sense that no one actually sees you. They see the mask, they see the reliable one, but they don't see the person underneath who is drowning in the very emotional labor they are performing for everyone else. You might even find yourself rewatching the same TV shows or movies as a way to cope. Why? Because your life is filled with the unpredictability of hiding your feelings, and your brain craves a cognitive blanket fort where the jokes land and the endings are guaranteed. It's an emotional regulation tool. You watch Jim and Pam or Harry Potter for the 20th time because it's the only place where you can feel safe sadness or controlled joy without the risk of real-world consequences. So if you're the person who treats their birthday like a normal day, or prefers the social cover of winter because it means you don't have to perform happiness, I want you to know that there is a path to relief. And it doesn't involve just being more open. It starts with something much more profound: grieving the child you didn't get to have. You have to grieve the version of you who should have been allowed to be messy, needy, and irresponsible and still been loved. You have to realize that your worth is not a product of your usefulness. You are not a human doing. You are a human being, and being is enough. Your hypervigilance, your stoicism, and your ability to read a room, these are survival skills your nervous system paid for with years of research, but you don't have to use them in every room you walk into anymore. You are allowed to be a beginner at being taken care of. You are allowed to let the small adult who ran the show for decades finally rest. It is safe now to let someone else take a turn holding the weight. If this hit home for you, if you finally realize that your privacy is actually a survival habit that's kept you safe but also kept you alone, please hit the subscribe button. We are here to help you understand your patterns, not judge them. We believe that turning complex psychology into stories that actually make sense is the first step toward healing. And if you want to support these deep dives, consider hitting that join button to become a channel member. It genuinely helps us keep these conversations going for the people who need them most. Now, I want you to check out this next video on why your weird habits are actually survival superpowers. It dives even deeper into the ways your brain has been protecting you without you even knowing it. I'll see you there.